guys doing today? On this Chill Friday, we're gonna do some coding and putting in some new animations and thinking about what to do next. This is Switchball Deluxe. If you've looked at any of my past VODs or streams, you could watch some of the development, playtesting, level creation. Today we're going to be doing some, again, coding and art updates and test them out. So, first things first, what we want to do today is I have a to-do list, which I'll show. Let's make sure this is showing. Boop. There we are. So, you know, all good developers, instead of using something like Jira or Trello, which I use at work at my day job and other places, but I kind of used Trello actually when I was doing more collaborative work on the video game projects. Sometimes Excel is just enough. So you don't need a full work management system. So what we're working on right now is down here. We're working on these two. So we actually finished last time we did some dev last week. This flower pollinator animation. This is what we finished. So I'm just gonna put a big old done on that. That is what I like to call NT. It's not terrible. I did my own art on it. We got the animation working within the right radius for the pollen when it comes out of these flowers when you hit it. So we're done with that. The next thing I want to put in is this fire animation. And this should be really quick. This will probably take about 15 minutes. Basically, we have a new fire animation right here. If you recognize it, it's from Super Mario 3. I just swapped out a bunch of colors, made the sprites slightly different. But again, in the final version, this will probably be a little bit more different. But that will be a new animation. Before, we were just using a single sprite that looked like this as a fire pit. I just made it red, a circle, but now we'll actually have a flickering little fire for our fire animation. So that'll only take about 15 minutes. So after that, we're kind of going to decide what I want to do next. And what I did is I took all of my to-do items here and I have them sorted by bugs or features, but the big thing is this priority column. So one of the goals that I would like to meet, now granted I only have about a month, is there's a convention in the Philadelphia area called Too Many Games, and they have an indie game showcase, and you can submit to be part of the indie game showcase by the end of March. So we'll see if we get there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get to that by the end of March, but that's the goal. And in order to do that, we have to hit these high priority things. So you know, when people come and play a game at the convention, they it's basically just there, you know, but it can't have game-breaking bugs where if the game crashes or if there's something that's like, well, how does this work? Like, there's no one there to show them. It just needs to work. You know, I will be there, but I'm not going to be hovering over, you know, my little booth, you know, theoretically if the game was there. But all that being said, we're going to focus on high priority stuff. So we have a few high priority items. This amount of points, this agile points here, this is based off of scoring for agile development. So when you're doing agile development, you assign points to certain items, and it kind of gives a rough estimate to how long it takes to do them. So for example, we really want some sort of tutorial. We're going to need that. Now I think it's probably just going to be a few screens, some sort of like, this is how the game works. Because we want it very minimal. We want people to come in, play, and figure out how to play as they're playing. I want it to to be that kind of game. But a minimal tutorial. We're going to have to refactor where stuff is saved. That's just a back-end thing. Haven't figured out this game crash. We did some updates for it, but I might even be locking out gauntlet mode, so it's not a big deal. This is something we want to do. This is getting little snapshots of art for level select. And then below, the rest of these things, even though they're free, aren't necessarily for things that need to be for the, if we're going to submit it for a showcase. If we were going to submit it, we probably need some sort of trailer or some sort of thing like that, which isn't here. But after we do this fire pit animation, we'll probably move up to some of this stuff at the top. We'll see. So let's do that first. So what we're going to do is simply copy over our animation to our actual sprite sheet. So here's our animation. So I'll take this guy. I copy. Here's our sprite sheet. Now our animation is currently sitting out here. We can just put it right below. And look like that. Each of these is a 16 by 16, and it's 4 frames. So what we're going to do is we're just going to resave our sprite sheet here without the grid, and we're going to re-export it. You don't see a little prompt coming up for that, but it's fine. Okay, so now our sprite sheet is exported. But one big thing of Monogame is the Monogame pipeline. So there's a pipeline that gets compiled and built in order to get updates of that kind of stuff into the game. So over here in the project, I'm going to expand this a little bit. I'm going to go to the content folder and open up this, and you can see that this is has a lot of references to fonts and all this sorts of stuff, and this is a compiled file from the Monogame pipeline. So how do we create this file? We certainly don't update it directly. Well, I'm going to open up the pipeline tool. And I will go ahead and share that. Check it out. That's not it. There it is. So it looks something like this. It's very simple screen. And what we're going to do is here, we have to load in, we have to find our content file. You see that this is completely empty, right? So we can do a little file open. Normally it's automatically, like I usually have this open. But what I'm going to do is, you can't see Windows Explorer, you know, when we're opening stuff. But I'm just going to navigate to my project. I'm navigating to this content .mgcb file over here. So I'm going to go to where that's sitting. It's over here. That's right there. So now you can see that our folder structure and stuff got loaded in. And what we did is we made a slight update to a sprite sheet. So over here. And which one did we update? We updated the platform object sprite sheet. So we're going to right click on that. I'm going to exclude it so it's gone. And then I'm going to delete it from the project itself. Essentially, we're going to be re-adding the new sprite sheet with this minor update to our project. Alright, so I'm going to go, and again, I'm not going to share Windows Explorer right now. It's a little bit of a pain to do that. we deleted it from our project, and now what we're going to do is I'm going to right click here, and there's again, you can't see the pop-up. It says add an existing item. So what I have is I have our sprite sheets for the project outside of the project itself, and basically that's where I save the updates in like in-process versions. And we're just going to go ahead and find that and add it. You see it appeared again. And at the top, we're going to do a build. And you can see it's skipping all these other files because they have already been built. So only new things need to be built. And you see it says built, 90 succeeded, 0 failed. If you had a failed build here, that means your content will not display correctly, or at least similar to a code project not building right, it'll go probably back to its previous stable build. So anyway, that fire pit animation is now in. So the thing we added here, we're gonna hide Monogame now, is now in. However, it's still looking at this and the size of this, so we need to change it to look at this. So we're going to find the object in our code and update it. So it is a fire pit. I think that's what it's called. Something like that. Let's look for fire. There we go. And yeah, there we go. So we have an update. This just updates for how it works, but our big thing is wanting to draw it and how it's being inserted. So here, this is actually not going to change. It's going to be a sprite. Well, it might change a little bit, but it's being drawn to this spot. However, it's no longer just a sprite. Now it's an animated sprite. So it's animation. So we need to change that. And we also have to change where this is getting loaded. And that's actually in our level builder or level editor class. Somewhat synonymous. I think in game, when I'm opening it up, I think it says level builder or level editor, and here it says level builder. So I'm going to go down to level builder. This is a gigantic class that basically loads in everything. There's a lot going on to this class. So we're just going to look for a fire pit. And there's a section of it where it's an interactive subtype called a fire pit. And right here what it's doing is this is a section that checks if there's a fire pit that already exists. So when you're right-clicking or clicking, you're trying to add it. It's not going to add any to a location that already exists. So it's checking for the position. If it not exists, it's going to add it. And right here, it's setting the sprite values of where it is in this spreadsheet. So we're actually going to be changing it. It's no longer a sprite. It's an animating sprite. And animating sprites are a little bit different. They're pretty similar. So we can go ahead and find, we have another animating sprite somewhere here. I'll just scroll up. A lot of these are standard sprites. Just as an example. Huh. A lot of these are pretty straightforward. In any case, we're still going to set the sprite values like this. There's a method here. And instead of 704.128, we can see that the location here, well, it's a little hard to say, but it's 16 further down, because this is a 16 by 16. So it's 16.144. Its width is now 4 frames, so it's actually 64 frames long. This height is still 16. So this is going to create a new fire pit. It's going to pass in this sprite, which is now an animating sprite, and it's going to be a 16 wide and 16 height. I do want to show other animating stuff, so I'm going to go animating. Yeah. So animating sprites have this set sprite sheet values. It also has an initialize function. And this is a pretty generic one. Can I go to one that's more specific? I meant like the generic method. Something like this is usually what it looks like. So we're going to need to do this method as well for our fire pit. Down here you see it's also present. We're in a method here where this is just simply for the level editor. So when I click on the icon, it also looks like the icon, the new animation. So I'm just going to change this to 44. And we're just going to keep doing this till we get back up to the top. And we're going to plug in this line. You can actually rename it. I'm going to just call it Fire Pit Animation. Hey KIC 9321, welcome to the stream. Hearts back to you. So what we're going to do here is, what is this animation doing? Well, we have a position. This position is actually going to be set right here. It's the object position. So we're just going to take the object position and put that right here. And it says, what's the frame width and the frame height? Well, it's a 16 by 16. And we have to dictate, well, what is the frame count? Well, in this case, we know it's 4 frames wide. So we go up here, we see 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. So we're just going to say this is 4. The next thing is, what is the frame time? How quickly is it going through its frames? So this is, I'm just going to put out a number. About 100 is kind of a medium pace. The higher the number, like 200, 300, is a slow frame rate. And a lower number is a much faster frame rate. We want these flames flickering. Well, let's do 100. We can always adjust it as part of just playtesting. So it's just going to be a flickering little fire. The other things here is, if we wanted, there's a way to tint the animation. We're not going to do that. And we're also going to define, oh, this is actually the tint, the white. So if you put white, it's not actually going to tint it. This is a scaling. We're not going to scale it up and down. And these last two variables are whether it's looping. So sometimes you have an animation and it just does just one frame of looping and it stops. Other times it just keeps looping. So you're going to say, yes, we want this always looping and we want it to be active when it's put in. So there's the updates there. Now if we go back to the Fire Pit class, we don't want to use the inherent, I'm hovering over here, I realize you can't see hover stuff. So it's using the inherent sprite from the entity class. So this Fire Pit class inherits from interactive object, and interactive object inherits from entity, where entity is like a base class. So we're actually going to put in a new animation here. I'm going to say public Fire Pit animation. What is new? We're just going to call this a I'll do a getter setter. And instead of assigning sprite to this, we're just going to assign Fire Pit animation to it. Now here also, we know that this is no longer a sprite coming in. We know it's an animating sprite. So we can just say this is the given, and if we could even name it the same. If you name something exactly the same, it's like, well, I don't know what this means. You could say like this dot if you really wanted to name it exactly the same. So now we have our new animation. Well, on update, it's doing everything it's going to do, but we also need to update the frames of the animation. So that's pretty straightforward. We'll just do it right here. And all you have to do is fire pit animation dot update. Why does that work? Well, every animating sprite class has their own update method, and that update method dictates how it goes through each of its frames and loops through them. So there's that update. And then in the draw class, we have a sprite.draw. Instead, now we want to do firepit animation.draw. I'll be removing that, so we're going to say draw. And here, it's a little bit different, but we have our sprite batch, which we're still going to have. Then we have our destination rectangle, which again is the same rectangle here. We can just slap this in. And then whether it's being flipped horizontally, and that's just going to be false. Now the rest of the stuff we actually don't need. So here I put in the object rotation, but there's not going to be object rotation for this. So we're just going to get rid of the old one. And that's basically it. We're now updating it. It's now an animating sprite. And yeah, we can go ahead and test it. So why don't we give our project a build and run it and see what we get. Oh, we already got an error down here. It says it's inheriting from the base class. Just need to copy this right here. Alright, so it succeeded, and let's go ahead and run this guy. When it loads, I gotta switch what window I'm sharing here. Maybe. There we go. Here's the game. I gotta make it smaller. And I've muted the game by default. Because right now we don't need the sound. Although I think the sound effects will still come through, maybe. Yeah, well, in the background. Alright, so where are our fire pits? Our fire pits are in World 7, Geothermal. And we can just take a look at them right away, see what it looks like. Bada bing. Alright, beautiful. We have 4 little fire pits here. Now nothing's going to be updating until the game starts. So why don't we start it up. Look at that. First try. So that's the little flicker animation. Very nice. And if you go on top, you become on fire. Nice. So that worked pretty well. So the adjustments that we could make is that flickering too quickly? That's kind of like the big thing right now. It's like, does that look too quick? Now we have some levels where there's like a bajillion of them. So why don't we take a look at one of those? Let's see here. Which one has a bajillion? I think flaming ring does. Actually, no, it doesn't. Never mind. One of these has a lot. Oh, it's a later level. It's an antimatter. Effigy. Whoa, that looks crazy now. Oh, that looks way better. So this is an antimatter level. What is antimatter? Well, when I hit this little double cherry here, I will be controlling 2 guys at once. So let's just start it up. Yeah. So that looks pretty great. It would be cool, just similar to pollen, where when I hit the fire, there might be like a little burst or something, like a little burst of sparks. Some sort of clue that that particular element was hit. So, pretty good. Do we want to speed up or slow down the animation a little bit? I think we could slow it down like a little bit. I think it's a little bit too fast right now. But overall, that's great for our first try. Okay. So where do we slow that down? We can go to the level builder. And it's right here. It's this 100. It's not like 100 frames per second, so to speak. But generally, if we make this a little bit higher, it'll be a little bit slower. Why don't we increase it by about 20%? So why don't we just make it 120? See how that works. And similar to the pollen, well, the pollen has an effect that is directly correlated to the your combo level and the functionality of it. Whereas if you hit a fire, the intent of the effect would be merely visual. So if we go to one of the pollinators here in wave shift. So here the pollinators do these flowers. So you can see there's a little spark that go off. And these sparks extend out the reach of the pollen. Now, if I it is, of course, a little bit delayed, but part of it's just the effect. And I wanted to make sure you can see it. But we need the bricks to change instantaneously for the sake of game. So you can see it's extending even further out. This is what we were doing last time. All red. So I went in here and changed it to blue. Now I'm going to change it to blue. So what we want to do is probably think of a simple little effect we could do when a fire pit is touched to give it more of an impact of like so it could just be a little pulse of light from the fire pit when you hit it, something that gives it a little bit of punch. So if we go to like, I don't know, zip zigzag here, there we go, that animation looks a lot better paced. We can be a little bit slower, but it looks pretty good. So here, when we hit a fire, I want there to be a little pulse of light, like a little burst. That is what we want. So let's think about that. We could make it a really simple thing, like a little glow, or we can make it an animation. Make it a little sizzle. Figure out what we want to do. So why don't we close out the game and think about what we want to do to finish the animation. Because as of right now, according to what I wrote here, we're done. Right. We created the fire animation. It's no longer a static thing. But we're gonna add one more line and say kind of a separate animation effect trigger when you hit the fire. So that's what we want to think about, is what we want to do for that. This one's in progress. I think it could be as simple as like I said, like a glow, or a little, like a little, a little. Is that helpful? A little. Of course, that's the sound effects. Instead of the sound effect going, thinking of just a little. Let's think. So we'll just go back to our spreadsheet. We were doing scratch work over here. And often when I want to do an animation, sometimes I think of something in mind. Like here I was thinking of a fire from Super Mario 3 Dark World, which is where these came from. The flower, I actually found a picture of a poppy and drew it myself. Even there, when hitting the flowers, it would be nice if there was like an animation from the flower, like a little shrink and bounce, like a little bouncing effect. But in any case, we can create a very simple animation, and we can either do it here or we can do it using Sprite. Sprite is a spriting tool that allows us to create really simple animations. Before I do anything, let's take a look at our sprite sheet and see if we can steal something that's already been done. So for example, say we wanted to be a little bit cheesy and use an existing animation. Let's see what I have here. Here we have a nice smoke or steam animation coming out of the pipe, disapparating. It's kind of nice. Go down here, any of these here. Here we have this is like a destruction animation of a brick being destroyed, so you see a little poof. You know, if we made that red and we made it a little bit wider, that kind of poof. If we did, say we did this frames in opposite, went boom, 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 like a poof. That could almost work, just like 2 frames even of light. It's one option if we wanted to use what we have already. We also have this animation, which is our warping animation. These little warps or wormholes. If we took something like this, changed the colors, and did a really fast zoom, that could also look potentially like a light burst. You could also make it so that it was not completely visible, opaque. But I don't want to make it look like you're warping. You don't want to really probably overlap that. So let's take a look. I think I like the idea of using this. Something like this, a little break apart the animation. So let's grab this and work with this. And I wonder what the frames are kind of weird here. Where's the frame on these? Doesn't seem aligned. These are 2 taller boxes being shattered. Yeah, it looks like the alignment's a little off. This was probably me accidentally putting it in wrong. when I first did it. Copy that. Bring it up here. Huh? Where'd it go? There it is. So is this a 16 by 16 frame? No. Ish. Ish, kinda, ish. So what we kind of want is just little, kind of like these embers. Little embers like this shooting out and breaking apart. And for it to be a one-time effect that happens when you touch it. So why don't we get rid of this big guy? I don't need that. And again, we're trying to make something here NT, which is not terrible. So if we think of you basically going to fire and having a little fire burst or little embers, something like this could be like when you hit it, there is a burst of these big old embers and they turn into smaller embers. It could literally be a 2-frame animation. And once we have some sort of base, then we can modify it. So our goal is to use these like orangey red colors too. So why don't we just grab this, modify it. Oh, that's not it. Red, there it is. I'll just colorize these. And I'm actually gonna have to move. I want it to be simple and be in the same frame. That it can fit within a 16 by 16 frame here. And then the secondary colors, we'll use these 2 oranges. Actually, do we have, is this 3 colors of oranges? No, it's just 2. Take the bright. Alright. So those are gigantic. So we can shave them a little bit if we want. Just gotta do that. Make them a little less prominent. Oh, jeez. They don't have to be even. Again, these are like little sparks. So why don't we just kind of shave off some edges here. Going to be a really quick little spark animation. We're actually going to do this. I need even a little bit more sparse, and then we can add in some more of this red as a complementary. So then why don't we take some of this red and add some splotches of red here. So there we go. We got some splotchy, fiery. So you're gonna hit that, and then they come out. You might even want some black in here to denote it kicking up dust. So maybe add like a little bit of black. Something like that. A little bit of embers coming up and disapparating. It's a 2-frame thing. You could even make it multiple frames if we wanted, like another frame if we wanted it. That's a quicker thing. But for now, why don't we just do this and see what it looks like, and then we can modify it. So we have a new 2-frame animation here. So as before, we're gonna have to go through the process of saving this, exporting it, and then our pipeline tool here that will show again. Hide Excel. Here's our platform object spreadsheet. We are going to extrude it. So the spreadsheet's not updated. How are we going to get this animation though? And this is where the coding comes in. So every fire pit animation now is going to need its own effect animation. So we can just call it a public animating sprite effect animation. So we can actually set this effect animation here whenever a fire pit gets instantiated. So we're going to say effect animation equals new animating sprite. And we can do very similar to what we did for the level builder. Where is this living on our sprite sheet? Well, it's living 16 down from the position of our fire pit itself. So it's 160. It's 2 frames long right now, so it's 32 wide. And here's 2 frames. It's also going to be pretty quick, so why don't we start off with something like 80 in terms of its animation speed. And then its position is actually just going to be the fire pit's position, because we want it centered, and that's why we did a 16 by 16. We can just set it at the same position. What's interesting about this one is this one's not going to be looping. So here we have looping and active. This is going to be a one-time animation, and it's going to have to reset after it triggers. So every single time we pass over one, it'll do the animation one time. Okay. And what we're going to do is we are going to go like this. We are going to say, might have to have a boolean of like triggering it or something like that. So I think we are. We're going to have something like this. We're going to say public bool is effect triggered. And we can just, it'll automatically be set to false, but if we want to just be thorough, we can just say to start, it's false. And here, we say, hey, if we're colliding with it, go ahead and set this to true. It says, well, if a clone collides with it, set the clone to be true. Now, if either of these things happen, we want the effect to be triggered. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a new method that resets our animation and sets this to be true every single time our player collides with it. So let's create a new method here called reset. So reset effect animation. And we're going to call this method every time this happens. So now instead of just having one thing here, we're going to have both have the player status effect to be this on effect, on fire piercing effect, and we are going to run this method. So this method's going to do two things. It's going to reset the animation because again it's not looping. So when it's done animating one time, it becomes false. It no longer works. And we're going to reset this guy. So we'll take this guy, then here we'll say he's true. And we're going to say our effect animation dot reset. Now what does reset do for an effect animation? Well, if we go there. It says it will set it to active. It'll reset its current frame to the first frame, which is what we want to do. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a final thing here that says if is effect triggered. So while it's true, go ahead and update it. So we're going to update it. We're going to say effect animation dot update. And then we'll just say if effect animation dot is active. So if it's no longer active, we're going to say the is effect triggered is no longer true. So this is more of a trigger. It's also kind of being used as well as, hey, an ongoing, should we be showing the animation. We also need to draw it. So we're just going to say, if it's triggered, go ahead and draw it. We'll say effect animation draw. And we can use the same information as the fire pit, because again, it's a 16 by 16 on the same position. And there we go. We added a new effect animation. We are resetting it every time it gets hit, so it can animate again. And it's only going to animate one time. It's going to loop through, and we dictated that when we instantiated it here. Let's see if it works. I'm going to go ahead and build. Fire one. Let's choose a different one. And our goal is to see a little animation that comes out when we hit it. It happens. It's so tiny. Because the instant that you touch it, it happens. See how you see like a really quick... Alright. What we need to do is pause so we can like actually see it happening. So you can see there's like a tiny little animation coming out. And then it dissipates. Let's go somewhere where we can see it a little bit better. Maybe here. What we can do is we can just modify a level 2 to test it. Shortcut. Not bad. So we have a little animation. You can see it's almost like a little shimmer. Because here, as I'm touching it, it's kind of always resetting. And that's something that it shouldn't be doing either. So every single frame of touching it, it's resetting the player's it's resetting the player's status to be on fire. We only want a one-time thing. Like if we've already touched it, we don't want it to be going off again. So that's a thing that we're going to need to put in. We also probably need something a little bit more dramatic. Because despite that, you can definitely see something happening, right? You can see like a little burst. We probably need to improve that. So, first, let's say, hey, we're only going to reset it if it's false. So if it's currently running, we're not going to reset it. So here how we said, hey, if the animation effect is false, do this. We're also going to do that here. We're just going to say if it's not active, then go ahead and reset it. But we're not going to constantly doing it every frame that it's touching. So there's a little code update. Now we have to think about improving the animation itself and probably making it a little bit slower. So how about we make it a little bit slower and make it a little bit more dramatic. So here we have 3 little things that burst out. Why don't we make it like 4 or 5 and burst out like this? Like just a really quick little burst. And we could even make it a few frames if we wanted. So why don't we do some Josh NTR. Oops! And just do these little clusters of stuff. Oh my gosh. Alright, take this, we'll copy it. Rotate it. Transform. What the doodah? that. The layer. There it is. And then these things too. Little chunks. Oh my gosh. Now again, you could be using a sprite or some other tool, which will work just as fine. But we're doing hacky. Okay, so we want something that's kind of got to be bursting out a little bit. So why don't we do this in 3 frames instead of 2 frames? So why don't we take this and move it over to frame 3. Over here. And all we're going to do is we're going to take these little bundles and just move them a little bit closer to the center. A little bit fewer disorganized clusters. Like that-ish. Then it's going to explode. These little sparks. We can add a little bit more to them, I think. As they rip off. So bump, bump, they come off. And then the final frame here will be them even further out. So again, very simplistic. They're together, and it goes woof. And if we wanted to change these even more, we could, oh goodness. You know, we could just make it a little bit sparser. So, bundle, poof, wah. So why don't we see what that looks like? Let's do a quick save, quick export, and in here we're going to split that, go back over here, here, we're gonna re-add it. Man, it's been a long time since I got a new computer. That is... This computer has lasted me... It's been like 10 years? Crazy. This is a laptop too. It's been very, very nice for a long time. Sometimes it feels slow, even with an SSD. Alright, so we built that. And now, all we need to do is say it's 1 frame larger. So the width is now 48. And it's 3 frames long. This is what it looks like. Good, I don't know. It's a good one. Nothing's happening. We completely broke it. Why? I think I know why. Also, you can't see, but it's completely broken. Here, I'll show you. I forgot to hide Visual Studio. There you go. I'll show you. See, no animations happening. Nothing. Whoa. Whoa. Now we're back here. And let's take a look at this. If the effect animation is not active, reset it. Oh, it's resetting it every single frame. It doesn't make any sense. No, it should just reset it one time. If it's active, what's happening here? Alright, we're gonna put that breakpoint in. Alright, effect animation. Active is true. Is effect triggered is false. Oh, that's the problem. We are, alright. This clause, should only be in the reset method for this. We always need to make sure that this is true. But it should only reset if it's not active. So smart. Okay, try that now. Fruit flambe. Oh, that was quick. Alright, so it's definitely doing the little animation. Let's try a different one, see if it's a little easier to see. There's a little animation going off. Is it clear what it is? No, there's like a little burst. There's at least some sort of semblance that when I pass by it, something's happening. It's like a little... It's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. You go there, you see a little boost, a little burst. Partly it's that, you know, it's so quick, because it's a 3-frame animation. It's probably better if there was just a glow, rather than an animation. Like if the fire glowed a different color, maybe. When you touched it. I don't know. There's a lot of ideas. But right now, there is at least something that tells you you touched the thing, other than turning on fire yourself. So there is a thing. So it could definitely be improved, but I think for now, as I'm not an artist, not sure how I'd want to do it. Whether it would just be like a little glow, afterburn glow, yeah, I'm not sure. But for now, the animation works. And we can improve it later. But it does a thing. Hooray. It does a thing. I'm going to switch up the music too. We're an hour in. Time to switch to music. This has been Majestic Beats. I don't know if you've felt that. Have you felt the Majestic Beats? What about racing vibes? What else we got here? Popular searches. Extreme sports. What am I feeling? I usually like something jazzy. Jazz Christmas. No. Jazzy beats. Vintage Hollywood. I'll just take this one. This one's probably fine. Coffee shop jazz hop. Just trying to make it sound fun. Okay. Here we are. So, we did it. It's done. Animation could be better. People will be like, what is that? It's sort of like a little... I guess they're sparks. Part of the thing could be that the animation is the same size as the thing, and maybe like you'd think it would burst outward more rather than be just like inside the fire. Which theoretically, you know, you could just make bigger. So here we have our little burst that bursts inside the thing. You could have it extend outside of it if you wanted to, like, you know, glow more. I kind of was picturing a glow like a light, kind of like this, like a glow like this, but I don't know, again, I'm not an artist, and right now I'm trying to functionally put something in there. And we have plenty more to do that's functional. So we're going to let it be for now. So we're just going to say, done. We have an animation. Beautiful. Okay. So the next thing that, if we took a look at all of these, let's do a little bit of highlighting. Hey, Nix, thanks, I appreciate it. The sprites don't look terrible. They're decent looking. Yeah, and of course, these are decent looking because it came straight from Super Mario 3's Dark World. Changing the colors, of course. So these fire pits will need to be updated a little bit too. So, you know, not copyright or trademarked, or I don't know how that works. Just changing the colors generally isn't enough. It's a little bit of borrowing, exactly. It's a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna highlight stuff in yellow, and the yellow things are gonna be stuff that if I want to be able to at least submit this to potentially be in the indie game showcase for, what's it called? The game convention here in Oaks at the Philly Convention Center. Stuff that we want to get done for that. Other stuff can wait. So for example, it'd be great to have achievements, and eventually it's going to need to work on tablets. That doesn't seem to be done for a convention. If we here have this thing for gauntlet mode, I'm not going to have gauntlet mode available for the convention. If someone's coming and playing it, they're not going to sit down and play the game for 2 straight hours as they try to play gauntlet mode. So that mode's not going to be available. So that, actually, we need a different color. We're going to put these in, give it a little pink. Pink means for later. The yellow ones, or we can make them blue or something, are the ones we're going to do. You would be surprised. Yeah, I don't want one person to sit down for 2 hours. They can play through all the levels individually. They don't need to play the gauntlet mode, which basically they fail every 5 minutes. But yeah. Something that we do want is probably the title screen. Now, this is a little bit tricky. The title screen is the only screen in the whole game that is using AI art. Because it was easy to have something up there. Everywhere else is either stock images, which I'm going to purchase, or take images myself, or actual custom art. So this is something that I can't, in all good honesty, have anything AI in the game, unless I had some like, you know, copyright or something that says this was created by AI. So I got to think about that. Some sort of title screen. I do want to settle on final versions of background images for levels. That should be pretty straightforward. Just various art updates. We already did 2 of those. This we are going to need to do. This is having a little snapshot of the levels. And I already have it planned for that. We are going to need a tutorial screen. We're going to need to do that. I'm not a fan of yellow. What am I doing here? These are things we need to do in blue. B button. There doesn't need to be a back button. I think the back button is mainly there. It's going to be for tablets, so you can press a button on the bottom right corner of the screen to go back, because you need that in a touch screen. If this is not going to have touch screen for the for playtesting, I don't really care about there being a back button. So again, I'm going to put a maybe. Fanfare. So fanfare is when you beat a world. You get fanfare, and it kind of gives you a nice little, hey, you did it. And maybe there'll be some world building or stuff like that. This happened yesterday too. Oh my gosh, it's loading. Alright, I'm gonna wait till it loads. And hopefully YouTube doesn't go down.